today's details, we take a look at the Carousel of Progress in Tomorrowland at the Magic Kingdom. This attraction first came from the 1964 World's Fair, where it was sponsored by General Electric, and so General Electric appliances are still visible in the attraction today. Did you know that each of the show scenes is meant to correspond with a holiday? You've got the obvious ones like Halloween and 4th of July because they're part of the show, and in the very first show scene it's February 14th, Valentine's Day. You can tell by the calendar against the back wall. This attraction features an insane amount of detail. We're going to zoom in on this newspaper that the father character is holding here. The newspaper says Frank Leslie's Illustrated Newspaper, and it carries the date of July 25, 1863. Let's look a little bit closer down at the fingers where the father is holding the newspaper itself. On the right side you can see the blow-up of that same area where the father is holding the newspaper. And on the left side we have a close-up of the actual newspaper from 1863. You can find the archives of these things online, and you see that they did recreate the actual detail correctly. In the 1920s show scene, look through the window and you'll see a cityscape in the background there. And one of the signs in the cityscape, probably while you're rotating, says Herb Ryman, attorney at law. Well, Herb Ryman was an Imagineer, one of the people responsible for the way Disneyland looks. He famously drew a concept art of Disneyland with Walt over one single weekend. Uncle Orville is reading a newspaper as well, and if you look at this close-up here, you'll see that this newspaper has a different name. It's called the Police Gazette, and it's a tabloid. It too was a real newspaper, and it was sensationalist and actually rather sexist. The sexism in the show is there for a reason, and kind of builds up in the 1900s, 1920s, 1940s scenes, and what's supposed to happen is it all gets resolved in the 1960s when there's the women's liberation movement, and Sarah kind of comes into her own. The mother figure comes into her own. Well, of course, the show has been updated since the 1960s when it was first created, and so now it's kind of a more modern era, and it makes a big jump forward, and the connection to the women's liberation is a little bit less strong, so the sexism left over in the show is a little bit out of place. Now this time we're going to zoom in on the daughter's little exercise equipment and look at that table over on the side there. It's the familiar stars and moon, the kind of shapes you would find on Mickey Mouse's hat, and indeed this is looking like a triangle hat itself, although it's not exactly the same design that Mickey uses, but it is a reference, I think, to Walt Disney Imagineering. They use that Sorcerer Mickey as their icon for WDI, and the hat therefore is an icon for WDI itself. The grandmother in the rocking chair is original to the attraction, but they duplicated this grandmother in the Haunted Mansion. There's a ghost in the ballroom scene sitting in a rocking chair and rocking back and forth, and it is a duplicate of the grandma figure from Carousel of Progress. In the final show scene of today's attraction, watch for this Sorcerer Mickey done in an abstract format against the back wall, kind of in the dining room area. More stars and moons. This is all the way across the other side of that set. This is in the desk over on the far right hand side. You can see that these plates have the WDI symbols on them as well. One of the hidden Mickeys in the last scene, and this is above the fireplace. It's a Nutcracker Mickey Mouse. On the whiteboard here we see a mention of Flight 1401. 1401 is the street address for Walt Disney Imagineering, 1401 Flower Street. It's in Glendale, California, so any mention of 1401 is an inside joke. A well-known nod on this bulletin board for Marty Sklar, the longtime president of Walt Disney Imagineering. Thanks for stopping by again. Can't wait to get to more of these next time.